Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our latest session of the 2021 Sustainable Agriculture Conference. You are currently in the Simplify and Maximize Your Online Sales workshop. My name is Matt Neese, the South Carolina Policy Coordinator for Carolina Farms Association. Joining me here is Amy McCann with Local Food Marketplace. Amy, how are you?
Great. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Well, one thing that we all kind of noticed when COVID-19 first hit last year was that it threw the world of agriculture for a loop, to say the least. Everything from market closures, market disruptions, lots of confusion, lots of farmers trying to figure out how to not just survive, but rebuild markets and where they could sell their products. We're still feeling the ripple effects of that now. And one thing we did notice was that the farms who were able to pivot to the online sales sector were able to adapt the quickest and with the least amount of damage. So at this year's conference, we wanted to bring in an expert to talk to you a little bit about how to simplify and maximize your online sales. So with that, I will turn it over to Amy. Amy, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate being able to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So just bear with me for one moment while I get all of the buttons pushed. I think we are there now. All right, great. Presumably you can see my screen now. Okay. I'm sure somebody will tell me if that's not the case. Yeah, so Matt, thanks so much for that introduction and for recognizing you sort of teed up the session quite perfectly. So we didn't rehearse that. Thanks so much for that. And that is exactly why about this and really how things have shifted, basically, in terms of how we think of online sales. And I was sharing with Matt as we were getting ready to come into the session here, how just a couple of years ago, we would be asked to present on online from a different perspective, which is why should I think about online sales? And things have very rapidly shifted to a different topic around online sales, which is, well, how do I make this a little easier on myself? How do I maximize this opportunity? How do I simplify things? How do I spend less time in front of the computer, more time farming, and without losing out on opportunities? So that's kind of the main thrust of our conversation here today that I wanted to share with you. It's obviously a topic near and dear to my heart, and being an online sales system provider, it's something that we think about day and night, and so have lots to say about it. My name is Amy McCann, as Matt mentioned. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Local Food Marketplace. My contact information is on this slide. It should show up on the last slide as well. So if you have any questions about any of the topics we talk about here today, or just kind of want to ask questions, put out ideas, so feel free to reach out to me, and would love to have a conversation with you, phone, meeting, etc. So in our session here today, I'm going to do a quick introduction and then just kind of dive into the heart of the matter. What I wanted to do though here is really just kind of explain from what context we're going to be talking about this particular topic of maximizing/simplifying online sales. And really, today's session is not so much on tips and tricks on how to maximize a MailChimp campaign, or how to get information into a system better. We're not kind of doing so much of the nuts and bolts today, but more taking a step back after all the things that have happened in a very short period of time and how things have shifted so quickly for many of us. And sort of taking a little bit higher level view of how all of the different pieces of the puzzle fit together, and um, and looking at it from that perspective. So, anyway, I just like to practice sessions like this ahead of time, know what they're going to get before they invest lots of time into listening to a topic. I think it's a worthwhile discussion, and it's a really important way to think about things with the amount of change and shift we've experienced over a really short period of time. It's an important time to kind of take a little step back. So in addition, we're gonna dive into like why should we be thinking simplifying online sales. We're gonna look into some basics, some statistics, some anecdotes, and then key for folks want to simplify their online sales. What are the key ingredients? What kinds of pieces of the puzzle to kind of make that happen? And then we'll do some questions. So, I'm hoping that you all ask questions. And a moment right now where I'm a little bit nervous that no one is hearing me. So I want to just check in. Is everything good? Okay. Okay. Awesome. I think we're good. I don't know about other people that have done these sessions, but like if you get nervous about things like this and that you're kind of talking to avoid. And so anyway, and to make sure I was reachable if that was the case, but it looks like we're all good. So just a little bit more about us before we dive into the topic. So myself and my business partner started our company in 2009. And our goal all along has been to help relocalize food systems. And of course, in order to make that happen, we have to enable small farms to be profitable. And the way we do that is through technology. Today, fast forward 12 years from when we started back in 2009, we're the leading platform for local food sales. We support food hubs, we support farms, farmers markets, and other online markets across the US and Canada. And to date, we serve about 350 food hubs and markets, and over 12,000 farms and producers are on our platform. So the folks that use that system, in addition to those food hubs, producer cooperatives, and farmers markets, and farms and producers, they do all of that to manage their wholesale sales, their retail, their CSA, and now also their in-person sales. So, and that's going to be a key topic of our discussion here today, and sort of expanding the concept of thinking about our online sales versus our in-person sales, and how do we kind of pull all those things together. So getting back to the topic here and why we're talking about this, and it's very much the topic is around the experience that we've all collectively had around COVID. And as mentioned, many folks pivoted online, and those who were even online had to do pivots as well. Many of our customers were customers pre-2020 were adjusting how they did sales as well through the platform. It was just a little easier for them since they were already online. But obviously that changed a lot of things really quickly, created a lot of challenges for everybody involved. And I think what many folks have noticed is that it's also opened up a lot of new opportunities. And with those new opportunities come also, of course, challenges. And so, as things move forward from the early day COVID and, just sort of the craziness, and then people started reflecting in late 2020 is when we started getting elections. um, about things. And so the things that people were asking, things like, wow, like this was a whirlwind. Is there a better way? Like this seemed thing to do, but wow, I'm spending a lot more time in front of my computer, a bit less time in the farm. How can we get this back in balance? Other things that we heard out were folks in multiple online stores. How do I streamline that? Like, gosh, I feel like I'm in like, all these different windows, updating things in all these different places. And, it started to get confusing and overwhelming. And along those lines, as our economy is opening up to in-person opportunities as well, how to keep our inventory, especially for small farms where you're selling product both in and online, and it's all coming in pool of product. We've got separate inventory. That was these are things that we were hearing, and we certainly anticipated them. They're not unusual. Many of you were asking a lot of these questions. If you're here today, those are likely things that you've been thinking about. Maybe you're still thinking about. So what we did was we started asking questions ourselves, and we thought, wow, this is a great time to get some good information from our community holders. And so we surveyed over 2,000 farms about a year or so ago to get their input and just kind of get some main sort of overall understanding of what was going on. And some of them were using our platform. This is kind of by no means comprehensive of all farms everywhere, but it is a good mix of folks. And what we heard, data from late 2020, and things were shifting still at that point, but we heard of farms were already selling online in some capacity. And of the 30 or so percent that were not yet selling online, almost half of them were planning on selling online in 2020. So that represents a pretty high percentage of farms that had some sort of online presence, of those that we surveyed, of course. Those same folks that we surveyed, 85% of them were selling in person as well. So they were doing, that sort of pretty good crossover of folks that were both online and selling in person. The other data point that we pulled out is that we know that in late 2020, 10% of producers on our platform were in more than one reported. So that's, and that number growing, and it's growing very quickly and a higher percentage now. So in summary, what we determined was that most farms looking forward were going to need to sell both in person and online. That was going to be the reality. We were not going to go sort of back to normal or pre-COVID or what have you. Things were going to be sort of in this mixture of online and in-person sales. And then the other key thing that we really solidified, and we saw these things coming over time, but of course COVID made things move ahead and changed behaviors much faster than the track that they were on. But what we also found and are confident in, and that selling in multiple online stores is a growing trend that's here to stay. And likely, if you are online now, you will likely be in more online in 2, 3, 5 years than you are now, if wanting to take advantage of those opportunities. So those were kind of really just kind of fundamental things that word we found to be critical things for us to support the market we were dedicated to and are dedicated to sort of make sure we're on track with solutions. I'm curious from the folks that are here, the stats that I shared, how did that ring for, is this your experience, expectation as well online? Are you selling in person? How many online stores are you selling into? What are you having with that? Just curious for folks to comment on that. Would love to hear how this, resonates with others here in this section. But I've zeroed just a couple of things here, and this section is all about everything what we do. We do those all the time. You're welcome to reach out to us because this it really is quite representative of how we think about this. What we did as a result of kind of decision that we put together and were able to ascertain, we kind of created sort of two tracks of immediate changes. One is that our sort of flagship product, local food marketplace, our namesake, we decided that expand the platform to also encompass in-person sales. So many of our customers were to have stores or mini farm stands, or and they were pulling product from the same inventory. And so did that immediately, and that's something that's resonated really with our customers. And then we also launch, or are launching, I should say, it's in beta test right now. It'll be available to the general public in December. A new product called Local Food. Now, we have lots of visions for this product, but most immediately, it's a tool that enables farms to sell into multiple online stores and person stores from one place. So even if the online stores are not all their own online, okay? So just in this very, my apologies, my graphic design skills leave a lot to be desired, but anyway, I kind of put this very simple picture together to kind of illustrate the concept of a farm utilizing this product called Local Food Connect to sell in Food Hub's online store, or maybe their own farm's online store, as well as maybe in person at a farm stand or farmer's market, and kind of doing everything from one. So everybody in the farm is on one platform, regardless of how the product is getting sold. So anyway, that's that, again, turning back to the topic at hand, that's the sort of lens that we see things through on this particular topic. And really, it's about how do we grow the opportunities for farms, and how do we continue to localize the system. We have to make it easier for the folks that are growing the food and doing that work to make those sales happen without having to gain skills in like 18 different systems at one time. So anyway, kind of drilling us back down to this particular topic and why thinking about online sales and in-person sales cohesively is critical. And all online sales, not just your own online store. It provides a better customer experience. So, the rules of thumb always is the more ways folks can buy your products is almost always better. There's very few examples of exceptions to that. And it's why if you go into stores, you see the same products, in those different stores. It's because having it visible to customers in more ways will only result in better results for the farm. Also, it gives them a better experience in that they will buy more when it's easy and things are flexible. So if they know they can order online from you and pick stuff up at the farmer's market, and you have visibility to their entire account, maybe they have an account credit, they want to use it for some stuff they're picking up at the farmer's market, all of that in one place just reduces what they call in this world friction with the customer. They don't have to, um, they don't have to do anything special to be able to use those opportunities from you. Also, from the farm standpoint, having data in one place for business decisions is going to only result in better business decisions, and having that data be complete. One very key aspect of that, of course, is having up-to-date inventory always. So not having to remember after you come home from the farmer's market to change whatever is available on the online store. Okay. It just is updated depending on what you've sold at the farmer's market. That's just one very specific example. And having that data at your fingertips, like what do you sell the most of across all the different ways that you sell? What sells the best and where? It helps you get better decisions so that you're minimizing the amount of product you have to compost when you do go to farmers markets. It helps you know what to grow more of, what to grow less of, how much to harvest, etc. for those different unknowns. And it's going to help you make better decisions. And then, of course, consolidating things rather than spending your time in spreadsheets. The data is just all in one place. And helps your whole team on the farm, from the pack team to the harvest team to the sales team, all operate from the same data and the same pieces of it in different spreadsheets and their own sort of siloed view of things. And of course, having all of your it also helps you create better targeted and timely marketing messages to your customers. So customers don't operate those, and a lot of times, we see folks, oh, that's my CSA list, that's my farmers market list, that's my wholesale list. And to a certain extent, there's a need to do that segmentation, and that's really important. But sometimes your CSA members also come to your farmers market booth and want to get reminders about products that you might have available that they can pick up there as well. And so kind of really focusing in on that customer behavior so that you're messaging folks in the most timely and targeted and relevant way to them. So if you kind of put all these things together, from providing that better customer experience to having the data and the information in place and having that timely marketing, it will certainly result in increased sales profit for your farm or your online market. I think it's important to know that this is not a unique problem to agriculture and small farms in particular, although I do believe that having specific solutions that are relevant to small farms is absolutely critical, because not all industries operate in the same way, but often they have similar problems. So for instance, if you've booked a vacation rental for your family, you might notice if you go on different platforms, you'll find the same places in these different platforms. And that is oftentimes not, they have to go to each one of those to update things separately. Those can be integrated. It's been a thing that those Airbnb and platforms like that have put together, because they know that in order to be relevant, they have to, okay. And likewise, sellers that you might purchase from, for other consumer goods, if they have their own online store, and also sell in other online stores like Amazon or eBay, they're able to do that all from one place. Okay. And from a consolidated inventory management system, which gives them all sorts of benefits of price, how they price product in different ways, having visibility on that, moving in which areas. These are things that other industries do to streamline things for both the seller, but also make it easier for the customer. So it's kind of a win-win, really. And many of us, another example of this is the explode curbside pickup, right? When we place an order online for curbside pickup, then we're tapping into their in-store inventory. And so that information online, it's also available, of course, for a customer to show up and go shop their aisle or what have you. All of those things are integrated, and they think of us as consumers, we buy in a sort of a mixed mode. We don't just buy in one way or the other. And we might buy certain products in different places depending on where we might find them. So the long and short of what I'm trying to say, that these challenges are, we're experiencing them as a local food industry right now, but they're definitely, they aren't unique. And but the solutions, of course, that we need are unique, and just the nuances, so to speak, of that. So the key ingredients, of course, to have this sort of omni-channel is the way sort of the retail world calls it. To offer this is, of course, having a really easy-to-use customer interface to order online, an inventory management system that allows you to sell across sales channels and across different stores. And then if they're doing in-person sales, a point of sale system that taps into that inventory management system. So all of these pieces need to talk to each other, of course. And then also adding in various other integrations that might be critical to kind of making it all work, from integration with your QuickBooks to MailChimp, which is a common email marketing system, to Square Sale, that's what you do to cards in person, to things like Routify, which is if you do home delivery, a really nice platform for route optimization and things like that. So all these things, which is a lot, right? Those are a lot of things that have to talk to each other. We are talking to each other. You're not dealing with lots of different broken data, mistakes that are made in between all of them. So I thought, before kind of opening it up for questions, I would kind of maybe throw out some real world examples of things where this is already happening. It might be already happening in your world as well, and would love to hear you have things that you're dealing with where it's like, oh man, I've got things going and coming in so many different ways. So one example that we see commonly is like a market style CFSA. And so, there's a farmer in Wisconsin, but this is not unique to them. There's lots of farms. It's a very common style to do a CSA, where, they sign up online like most CSA signups happen for the season. And then they show up at any number of farmers market stands that they go to throughout the week, and they are items that they want, and they might buy more, they might buy a little bit less, but all of that information, it's critical to know when that customer shows up at the checkout, is that whether they've already picked up yet or not, and or what value is in their account. So that information, both the online account details meshed with what's happening in products purchased and when they bought it and what market they showed up, like all those details are really can make you do better customer service and make sure you're providing good information to the customer. Another example of this is a farm in Florida that we've chatted with. They sell account credit online. So people buy kind of farm box. And then farm box allow those folks, the customers, to pre-order online to pick up at specified locations, or they can just show up at them, use what items they want, and utilize those farm box. And they don't have to bring a piece of paper. Just, they want to be able to say, oh, and so, and here's my information, and they are able to get the item deducted from their farm box account. Another similar example is a producer co-op in Ontario. They have an online store, super successful, grew a ton with COVID, but also have a physical small store. And all of the customers buy from both, and it's the same inventory, and it's a consigned inventory model. So having a way to kind of manage all these different sales without having different systems to do so and transferring data back and forth is super critical for their for their success. And then, of course, there's a firm in Massachusetts that has their own online store for wholesale. Plus, they're selling to 2 hubs and 2 distributors. And so their data is in 5, 6 systems, and having all that get collated and come to one place and project from one place, growing into more food hubs, more online markets as more opportunities come up. Okay. I mentioned this before. Also, again, if you have any questions, want to learn more of these topics that we've just kind of put out there at this sort of strategic level, would love to hear from you. But I'm hoping we can open up the floor to questions here. I'm going to hop back into the platform over here to hopefully see some of the conversation that's happening. Okay. All right. Okay. Great. Oh.
Hey, Amy, this is Matt,
Hi.
CFSA. I just wanted to pass along a few questions that
Yeah.
I've encountered. I'm kind of relaying these vicariously.
Mhm.
In terms of, I know this is mainly about simplifying and maximizing your online sales existing. If
Mhm.
if you are a farmer, I will say I dropped this in the chat earlier, so let me just say this.
Mhm.
For farmers, in response to your survey, who don't currently do online sales, almost all of the ones in the farmers and producers we've encountered at CFSA who don't have online sales are ready to explore online sales.
Okay.
So it's definitely something they kind of understand the importance and value of.
Mhm.
Where would you recommend someone go if they currently have no online presence?
Okay.
Are there any good starting points? I mean, where would you go? Would you just say Google it and try to find some good website builders? Would you recommend networking with other farms who have existing online sales and kind of trying to copy their model? I mean, what would you recommend?
I would look those That's a great question. I would do a couple of different things. And I think one is to make a plan of all the different pieces that you need to plug in, and understand what, um, your level of control of each one of those, right? So in order to have online sales, ideally you're going to have a website as well, right? So you've got online sales website. Sometimes those are in the same package, and sometimes not. Okay. Um, Have to understand all the different pieces of the puzzle. There's some great resources. The Farmers Coalition, in the beginning of COVID, put together the National Young Farmers Coalition, like kind of a summary checklist of focused platforms that are a really good place to start, to just say, okay, these kind of meet my basic needs. I'll kind of go start checking out what those options are and what they might look like for me. And that's sort of one channel of information. I highly recommend getting data from, there's a number of online forums that talk about this a lot, that are for farms. So the Market Garden Success Group, if anyone is familiar with that, I see lots of farms on it. I think there's thousands of them. This topic is discussed pretty frequently. Highly recommend dialing into that. And then also chatting with farms that you know, and what has worked for them, what have they tried. Those are really important points. And then I think the other aspect of it is, where does it fit in the overall business? Will dictate the level of investment that someone might need. And there's some systems that you can get into, and it's like you literally have $0 investment, but maybe have a little bit more sweat equity investment. And others where you have some upfront costs but less sweat equity. So you kind of need to balance like your time and dollars and things along those lines, and what's going to work the best for you in those particular topics. So I would definitely start with that the National Young Farmers Coalition site that has a really nice comparison set of options there. Yeah.
And that's a terrific answer. I know Ashley's dropping links in the chat here people can go straight to.
Okay. Oh, good. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah, she's on top of it. The only other question I had, again, this is a question that I've encountered working with our CFSA producers. We run into a lot of farmers who they already have their presence at a farmers market. They've already got their CSA. They may have be selling to food hubs. They may do direct on farm direct to consumer sales, and their kind of attitude has been, well, I don't have the bandwidth, I don't have the time or the energy to make that pivot into also doing online sales. What would you say to people like that who they may have a mental block or a misconception about the power of online sales? I mean, is it really that much of a lift to add that as a supplemental source of income?
Mhm. So I think talking about online sales and defining what it is important. So in order to sell online, you do not have to have your own online website. You don't have to have your own online store and still do online sales. Not everybody needs to create their own online store in order to sell online. In the example that you just mentioned, those farms are already selling online, most likely if they're selling to a food hub or their farmers market has some online presence, they are selling online. And that is, if that sort of is a good, that covers the customer options that you have and is a good solution, then there's not always a need to have an online store for just your farm. I think having an online store for the farm, there's different product sets that it makes a lot of sense and scales that it makes a lot of sense. And then there are some times where it might not make sense to have your own online store, yet still be online in some capacity by dialing in. And that was one of the great things that I think COVID did, is so many farmers markets went online. And it was really not, for a lot of farms, it wasn't possible for them to do the lift that was needed to do their own online store, because it's not as simple as rolling up a website and and opening up a store and then everybody comes. There are quite a bit more things to it, and it's good that folks are being realistic about how much goes into that. Now, there are certainly ways to streamline that, make that easier, but like I said, the nice thing about farmers markets going online is that it gives an online presence to farms without that heavy lift that the farms would have to do themselves. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one more question here in the chat I want to pass on to you. What are some common mistakes that farmers may encounter when it comes to online sales? So a lot of farmers may take the plunge and start doing online sales. What are some common kind of don'ts that you run into that farmers what kind of mistakes do they tend to make?
There's some, I would say, I would classify them into a few different categories. One is sort of the "I'll build it and they will come," sort of mistake. And just because you have an online store does not mean that you will get a lot of online sales. Um, and that sort of goes along with some of the things that we were just saying. You have to do marketing, you have to remind people to order, you have to plug it into the rest of what you're doing. And so having a good strategy to do that is important. Um, Another thing I think is really important to think about is um, when you utilize a platform, who has control of your online presence and who owns that data? Okay, so this is not something that a lot of people think about, but in the age of data and technology, it's a really important thing to understand. When you say, hey, customers, go start ordering here, or use this to communicate with us, or here's our website, who controls that, and where is that data living? So, yeah, those are a couple of things that we've encountered, this past year, and are quite common. And then I think, just being patient as well, and kind of thinking of it as a project, as something that you grow over time. And not trying to, like, oh, we're going to just change everything overnight. Continue to do what works, that's worked always for your farm, and then add it as a component, so that it's more, it's a way to manage risk and have new opportunities. So, yep.
Exactly. Terrific.
Mhm.
I did want to pass on. There's another great question that just popped up in the chat from April Simpson. How would you alert the public that you actually have an online store? She's gathering email addresses for her sales.
Mhm.
So obviously that means newsletters, but is there any other way that you can alert the public?
Social media is a really great option for getting people aware of your online store. Um, so if you have an Instagram account, a Facebook account, that will help people know that you have a store. Make sure it's in your profile so people can link to it. Um, Another one that is I recommend are Google ads. And the nice thing about Google is that you only pay for people that click on your ad, versus impressions, which is what you pay for some of the other advertising. If you sponsor a post on Instagram or on Facebook, you're paying for impressions that, to some degree you have some control over, but in other ways you don't. Whereas, in Google, it's like you decide what areas you want that to show up, and you will only pay if somebody clicks on it. So I would highly recommend that as a consideration. It's really easy to set up and easy to tweak. Um, but the email list is by far your most powerful tool in that, and getting those customers, getting them into an email marketing system, and setting up some level of frequency of communication is really important, and reminders. So, most of our customers, if they're doing online, weekly schedule, they'll send at least a couple of reminders to their customers, that online ordering is available, and maybe they'll highlight a couple of products. Others have also started engaging with SMS messaging, so text messaging, that enables you to communicate, with folks' phone, and, shop right from there. So that's another thing to explore if you start gathering cell phone numbers as well. So, yep. Yeah.
And I'll second the Google Ads plug. There's a
Yeah.
lot. That is a great resource that I've used before,
Mm.
and the fact that you don't really pay unless someone clicks on it is a very, very useful approach too.
It is. And being in a local community, I mean, I think it it will, because you can dial in where people are clicking from. Like it won't show, if you're in South Carolina, it won't show your ad if you're in like, in California or whatever. So if you set it up correctly. So yeah.
Yep, you bet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to highlight another question here from Mike Hansen in the chat. Do you
Okay.
have any experience with Source What's Good? I like their payment model because it doesn't require a monthly subscription. They take 10% of sales, sharing in the risk. I spoke to a farmer that uses it. He increased his prices by 10% on the platform just to cover the cost. So, and he included Source What's Good. Do you have any experience with them?
Um, we're definitely aware of their product. They're primarily used by farmers markets as their main sort of use case, and that the farmers market sort of kind of set it up so that their farms can utilize it. The model is, my understanding of their model is that it's not so much an aggregated order, but like a per producer order. Um, but I would suggest there's a number of farmers markets. Like if you go to their website, I would inquire with a number of the producers that sell through that, and they're pretty visible because they have their website, like all the different farmers markets that use it, super visible. Yeah, I mean, I think the other piece to think about of that pricing is how that cost increase looks to the customer, and how your customers might um, notice that or not, or care. And whether that's like a platform fee, whether folks see that and and have a concern with that or not. Some folks might and some folks might not. I think it depends on your customer base. And I do know, like, seeing just a parallel, seeing how some restaurants in our community offer online ordering, like through, your standard like Grubhub and sites like that. They often also offer like curbside pickup from their own website because they get so much pushback from their customers about the cost increases for buying through Grubhub. And, they don't want to pay that 10% or, whatever that cost is. They'd rather all that money go direct to, the restaurant. So I think, any of these models, you'll have to look at what you think your sales are going to be and how that's going to impact your bottom line. So, yep. Yeah.
Awesome. Hope that helps a little bit, Mike.
Yeah.
Again, last call for any questions in the chat. We've got one more here. I'll pass on unless we see some new ones. But Ashley asks, is it possible to be on too many platforms? And what metrics should farmers consider to balance what's worth their time and what isn't?
That's a good question, because I think that's sort of the nature and why we propose this, because I think a lot of people were like getting sort of um fatigue from having to update things on multiple systems and learn multiple systems. And I think that's, a really important question, and why we need to be looking at things a bit more holistically, on how do we still take advantage of the sales opportunities, but without having to learn 3 and 4 different systems. So the answer is yes. I think that's what we've seen, is that having to learn many, many different systems is fatiguing and easy to make mistakes, and then data's not talking to each other, and things along those lines. And that's, why some folks have to pare things back. But again, also why we need to be looking at things where farms they can still live in one place, but still sell their products in multiple spots. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. And we just got a private chat question here, worth passing
Okay.
along. More of a comment, but we'll see if you've got any comments on it. We've got a question that says, I'm a tomato farmer and planning to make a farm store for which I need collaborators to offer diverse kinds of produce.
Mhm.
It's a physical store which will have an online element to it.
Mhm.
Grateful for any comments you may have. It sounds like this is someone who, if they're already ready to set up an online store,
Mhm.
they may be able to put a lot of this to use. I mean, are you looking for, as Ashley just commented here in the chat, are you looking for collaborators?
Um, so, I guess commenting on the online store for tomato a good idea for a farm that sells a single product to look for collaborators. Um, that's super smart and a great way to increase your profits and everybody wins. The other farms that you're working with, your farm will get more sales because it'll draw folks in that are looking for eggs. And then, oh, by the way, they buy some tomatoes at the same time. So that's a great idea. Um, I think when anytime physical inventory is looked at, being really careful about whether that product is owned by your farm and you've purchased it outright, in which case, if it doesn't sell, then you are sort of on the hook for the cost of that, or whether you're looking at a consignment model where it's like, okay, you bring it here, I provide the space, I staff the market, I, do all of these other, have all of those costs. And then when I sell your product, I will cut you a check weekly or monthly or whatever that looks like. That tends to be a really good way to start a multi-farm type setup, low risk for that tomato farmer that was speaking. Um, and at the same time gives other folks an opportunity to have a presence somewhere else, depending on how well that product inventory information is visible. So if they know when stuff is getting low, that they need to come and bring some stuff, additional product over, having visibility on that information will be really important, and kind of streamlining that and finding the right partners that can buy into this model and have understand what it looks like and what those opportunities might look like. So yeah, yeah.
Terrific.
Was there another question related to that? Mhm.
Um, Doesn't look like it. Ashley was engaging with them in the chat, mainly
Okay.
just seeing if we were like you covered it extremely well. Just mainly about if
Okay.
you're trying to set up your own online store for a
Yeah.
single product, how do
Mhm.
you find collaborators? And it looks like just now
Mhm.
this is something that you just covered. So thank you for
Okay.
kind of going into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't see any additional questions at the moment. We did have one question from earlier on, which is that are you willing and able to provide these slides for anyone who may be
Oh
interested?
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, because there were earlier on, like at the very beginning of the broadcast, there were a few kind of technical glitches. The audio was a little bit glitchy, so we had a few people
Yeah.
asking if there was a way that we could get copies of the slides. So um, I've got
Yeah.
everyone's email addresses who plugged that into the chat right here, so we'll pass that along. Is there any last kind of parting comments or thoughts that you've got before we wrap up here, Amy?
No, I just really appreciate everybody being here and asking these great questions and putting these good ideas forward. Um, and, just thinking about sales holistically, I think is really, where our market is headed. And I think will give folks a lot of opportunities to grow, if they think of their sales in that way. So, yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again, everyone, for being here. Thank you. A big thank you to Amy for taking the time to be with us here today and present this information. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is one of the issues we hear most about from farmers more than anything
Mhm.
else. How do you A, set up online sales, and B, make them profitable?
Right.
So we covered a lot of information here today. Again, this recording will be made public on the CFSA app for the Sustainable Agriculture Conference. My name is Matt. with CFSA. This is Amy. Thank you again for tuning in today. We got plenty more programs later this afternoon and over the next few days as we wrap up the 2021 Sustainable Agriculture Conference. So thanks again for watching. Thank you to our sponsors and exhibitors for being here. And I hope you all have a good rest of the day.
So long. Bye-bye.